So thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. And today I'm going to talk about sustainable planning of mining areas. And I'm going to go a little bit up and down, like outside and inside the mining industry, just to see like what are the main trends which are driving mining also today. And first of all, as a planner, we are very interested like on urbanization, and we think that this is one of the main driver for minerals and the demand of minerals. And we can see that as a forecast, like show that in the future, urbanization will be like a very strong trend. And we see that urbanization will be mainly driven by Asia, cities in Asia and African country, where like the urbanization process, so the amount of people living in cities or in urban areas is still like, there is like still a big gap. This was just like a little bit of context to say that the urbanization process, of course, in the future is going to drive the demand for fuel and non-fuel minerals. And we are going to see that despite the green veg, so the amount of renewable energies in the future, the amount of renewable energy in the future is going to be like stronger, like there is going to be a stronger like production of energy from renewable energies. We are going to see that the total demand of energies, and therefore the total demand for fuel minerals, is going to increase in the near future. And the same is for the demand of non-fuel minerals, which are like needed for the construction of cities and infrastructures around the world. This demand is going to increase as well as the demand for minerals for the smart technologies, which are very strong. Typically, like we think that the impact of harvesting energy and harvesting like minerals, these impacts are outside the city, as we can see in some of these examples. But in fact, if we look like beneath the surface, we can see that the impacts most often are inside the city, like the case of Kiruna, for instance, is a case in point where the city is going to be partially like replanned for accommodate the expansion of the mineral industry. But it's also like if we look at the entire life cycle of minerals, for instance, where they are incorporated into like our technologies, we are going to see that also the impact of like recycling the minerals, the e-waste minerals, has also a very strong impact on cities. Therefore, like in this project, I'm going to work like there is a need to understand what are like the relationship and the interrelationship actually between resources and urbanization. And we are working with a very simple model in which, if we like extremely like simplifying, we have extraction points of resources, we have refineries, of course we have all the infrastructure of distribution of these resources worldwide. We have of course the processing points of these minerals, which are then transformed into products that are consumed worldwide. And of course, at all these stages and this global production network of resources, at all these points we have waste, different types of waste, and of course we have also the recycling of the waste. So this is like a simple model that when we look at it and we apply it onto cities, onto like region, we can see that this has like a specific, creates specific like urban form and urban issues. So the main point I want to make is that urbanization drives resource exploitation and vice versa. The exploitation of resources drives urbanization itself. It creates like a landscape, an urban landscape. So the thing is that like from like a planning and architecture point of view, we think that there is like an opportunity, and I think this is very much like synchronized, if we can use this term, like with the previous presentations. There is the need to rethink like the way we understand mining today, And there is a need, and the need is to look at the entire life cycle of resource urbanization in a more comprehensive and holistic way. And also there is a need to plan ahead and beyond the resources to create value for society as well. So I think like that the design, architecture and planning as like can contribute the tools and the skills that we have like in our profession can also be adapted, transferred, and also adjusted to the mining industry to help plan in advance for change and to create value for society. There are opportunities from this integration of design into mining. The opportunities for society are to have extra benefits from the mining economy that goes beyond those that are linked to the resources in itself. It was what we were hearing like in the first presentation. Eventually the mining like will close, will move to another site, and we need to think ahead about this process, and we need to think, there is a need to think about what kind of values we can build beyond the resources. But I think there is also a value, an opportunity for the mining industry, as like the industry is in a way like trying to reimagine itself in ways that is more acceptable, is more responsible, compatible with the expectation of society in regards to environment and social justice. So we are working this as like in education, also with students, and if we really like try to simplify like sort of child diagram, the mine, of course, takes minerals from underground, it creates, of course, it generates waste, there is a community, there is a mining industry, of course, and there is a set of like opportunities and benefits which we can think if we think about these impacts in terms of like resources rather than problems, in terms of remediation and in terms of recycling. So what I'm claiming, like to make it like a little bit more clear, is that like if we think in also in a design and an architecture way or in a planning way, the mining process, I think there is more value that we don't see at the moment, and is there, and also it's not only like a cost, but it could be like also opportunity, like in the sense of long-term development for the community. And also, like, I think a central point that is perhaps not yet that clear in the presentation is that we need to think ahead of this process, not afterwards. Because I think that the cost for the industry is not much, like in the short term can be about, like, of course, sustainable technologies may cost more. But the question that I want to ask you is that what is the cost of the industry for social resistance to the mining, for like having like a very difficult and sometimes like very cumbersome like process of accessing a site for exploitation. So what is the cost of not exploiting? So we are trying to think like in an education like setting in the university about how to rethink resource towns, working with students as well. And like, I just want to close the presentation with some like case studies about the integration of design and planning into mining. All of them come from Germany, from the Lusatia region. Lusatia is a region like in Germany at the border more or less with Poland, between Dresden and Cottbus. And this region has a long history of mining and of course a lot of history an issue with mining like reclamation. So I want to just show like examples how like the stakeholders over there are working with design like and planning tools to reimagine, like to rethink about the future of the exploited areas with like some concept, but also with some projects that have been realized about the reuse of industrial heritage, about the reconfiguration of like mining waste in ways that creates like value for landscape. Also architecture can play a role, and they have some experimentation over there with floating housing. renewable energies. I think it's like there's a big potential about rethinking mining areas also in terms of renewable energies production, generation and storage for the future, and also of course for sports and free time. So that is it.